we covered the logbook, making sure you've got your fuelman card and your handicap sticker and you sign in. All that's the same. Make sure somewhere in there is your orange box. On the caravans, it's often thrown down in the front. I like to store it right here. You can sometimes store it in the middle. It's just out of the way. This is a no-no, finding these loose in the vans. So this one is a little bit different, but it should have been secured. If you find those lying around, you have to report it, but just put them back in and secure them to the floor. This van has a manual ramp. You don't need to turn it on, but you may want to turn on the AC or the heat. You don't need to put the parking brake on because it's a manual ramp. Again, the same thing as the high tops. You want to park on a level surface so that things don't roll if possible. So the Q-Strength tie-down system works the same, but how you use it is a little bit different with these vans. You want to set yourself up for success and find your belts first. Make sure you have all your belts where they need to be, and then get your person in the van. With the high tops, it doesn't matter as much. You're on a level surface. You're right there with the person, and then if you need to, you can look for your belts. But with this, the rule is you have to have a front tie down on the wheelchair before you can go around and get the rest of the belts. So it's best and saves you time and energy, and it's safer for your person in the wheelchair to find your belts first. And we'll go over that in the back in a minute. But otherwise, the Q-Strength tie-down system is the same. How it goes in the floor is a little different. They're already positioned. There's only one position the tie-downs can go. With there, you have a rack system and you can slide them where you need them. These are pre-positioned, which makes it a little easier. Okay, and we'll move to the back. Okay, then one of the things with the caravans that is different from the high tops is the seats. These seats will fold up out of the way. There is a lever for your hand right under the corner, inside corner. So you're going to pull up on that lever, put your hand up here, and you can see how it tilts, but then we need to get this down first. So there's another lever here that will allow this come down. Now if I didn't have my hand there and I was bending in, I'd probably slap my head. Staff love it when I demonstrate that, but I'm not doing it for you. My recommendation is keep your hand on that to slow the rate at which that comes down, and then do this lever and pull it up off to the side. It'll lock in the upright position, and when you need to get it down, you just pull on that lever and push it over. Put this back up. Don't forget to put the headrest up for the person. You can adjust the seat angle, of course, for the person, and the armrest. A lot of times, staff will have more than one consumer with them, and they'll have maybe a cooler with beverages or a picnic lunch. You may have camping equipment, whatever, groceries. You may need to use these seats, and if you do, then the wheelchair is going to have to go in the back. You can get two wheelchairs, one in front of the other, if you put the seats out of the way. There are tie downs for both. Well, I'm going to get this out of the way. This is something else. You can tuck that up there out of the way. Your windshield scraper. Very useful in the winter, but it's in the way in the summer, but you can tuck it out of the way. Also, by tucking it out of the way, it's secured. It's not going to go flying around if something happens. So I wanted to mention, when you pick up this van, same as the high tops, you want to make sure all the tie downs are in the floor because you have to report it. It's an incident report if they're not put in the floor. So, and that's on the person that had the van last, but you have to do the report if they're not in the floor. So he's going to take a view of the floor and show you, for a caravan, this is what you should find. You should find all 8 tie downs in the floor secured. There's only one spot for each of them to go. Those 2 back there are for the rear tie downs if you put a wheelchair here. These 2 here are for rear tie downs if you put a wheelchair here. These 4 are obviously the front tie downs. These for the front wheelchair spot, and those 2 for the back. But they should all be in the floor. When you're putting a wheelchair in here, you can see it's tight quarters. You may want to move these out of your way to get a chair in. You can also slide them off to the side. They pivot, is what I wanted to point out. And they're easy to take out. You just pick them up, slide them off. And I'll show you that again in a minute. So I just wanted to illustrate what you should find when you pick up the van. You want to find these secured. Even if you're not using, even if you don't have a wheelchair and you're not using this area, just make sure they're in the floor so it's safe for you to drive the van. What happens, a lot of times accidents happen fast. You get a front wheel on the shoulder and it's soft and you get sucked in a ditch. This happened to me in a high top, and my boss was driving right behind me. Fortunately, she had a cell phone because I had to get towed out. Fortunately, I did the tie downs correctly and the person was fine. But you don't have time to go, when you have an accident, to correct anything. It better be done right the first time. So even if you don't have a person in a wheelchair, you still want these secured in the floor because the accidents happen fast. And you say you have another consumer up here traveling with you, or even if it's just you going to pick someone up, you don't want to get hit by one of these tie downs if they start bouncing around or get thrown forward. Like I said earlier, they weigh like 5 pounds each. You can imagine at 55 miles an hour what that weight would do to someone. So just, it's serious, it's safety. Make sure they're kept in the floor at all times when you're using the van. Now when you're putting someone in or out, obviously you have to take them out of the floor to get the wheelchair in. Just make sure when you're driving that all 8 of these are in the caravans or in the floor, secured. Okay, we're at the back of the caravan. There's a lever hidden underneath this panel. Flips up. When it comes time to pull this door down, there are handholds on each side to pull down with. Some people have difficulty reaching this. Those really tall people can't reach up here, so if you have trouble reaching this, you can get a step stool from the agency, and there may be one in the van already, and then you can use that to help you reach this. Step stools can also be used on the high tops. A lot of people have trouble getting into the passenger seats, the other consumers that might be with you, so they're useful, those stools. What I wanted to show you is there's a handle here to pull the lift out with. There's a lock here, so you unlock it and just slowly walk it out. Try not to let it drop very much, but it just lies on the ground. That's your ramp. That's all there is to it. It's manual. When you're done, just pick this up. Careful not to pinch your hands. Push it in, make sure it locks so it's not going to bounce around too much. The reason we have a lock is because before it was bouncing against the doors. So you can see that this housing is pretty low to the ground. In the winter, try not to back into snowbanks and stuff with it. You may notice that a lot of the vans have dented doors. I'm told it's from other drivers backing into our vans, because I could not figure out how that was happening. So we have our tie downs in the floor the way they should be. The belts are in this pocket over here. They're pretty much folded up nice and neat, which is good, but sometimes you're going to find belts all over the place. What you're going to need to do is make sure you have a set. Make sure you have the buckle set. This one's already together, so I think I'll use that. And we need a shoulder harness. Let me put this back. So please do not store these in this, because then they're not secure and they can fly around easily and hurt other people. When you're putting someone in and out, these are often in the way. So putting them off on the side while you're working is fine. Something like that is fine, so you can get the wheelchair in. So we found our belts, and they're a little dirty. I'm not sure, these probably need to be washed, but I've got a complete set. Got the buckle set. I got a shoulder harness set. If you're wondering how I know if I got a shoulder harness set, it's because they have those fittings on both ends. So you can see that we only have a shoulder pin on this side, not on this side. So our shoulder harness is going to have to come across this way on the person. So another set up there, but since I know it has to be over here, I'm going to put it on this side. It's ready to go. I also know that while this is on the person, this pin is going to have to be over here for the shoulder harness. So I know that this part is going to go over here, and I know that this part is going to be on this side. So by finding those first, you're saving yourself some time later and some inconvenience, because once you get the person up here, you can see there's not a lot of room to work. And the rule is on the caravan, it's very important. It's the same as the red strap on the high top. You have to use a red strap on the high top. On this, you have to have a front tie down on before you can go walk around into the van to do the rest. Because this is on an incline, you don't want the person to roll out into traffic or off the sidewalk or whatever. So when you're using the front, it's level, but still the same rule on the caravans. You have to have a front tie down on for safety before you can get out from behind the wheelchair. Okay, so we got that set up. Annie, our consumer, wants to go to Dairy Queen, so we're gonna take her up in the van. Now, if I just went straight in, you can see there's not much clearance on either side for staff to get through. So it's very difficult. So what I recommend is you veer off to this side, and then at least you have enough room to get through there if you need to. So we're gonna put our brakes on. But you cannot just walk away and trust the brakes, because this is already starting to roll. It may roll out. So we're going to get close to that divide in the floor, put our brakes on, hit that red lever and pull this out. Easier said than done. And for right now, I'm just, are you still going? Just gonna put it on the footrest. It's just temporary. It's just to keep her, it's just enough to keep it from rolling. And then I'm gonna either go in this way or I can go in on the side. And I can get the other tie down ready. And then I can pull her back into position and put this one on the frame. Take this one off. Pull it out all the way. Put it on the frame. Okay. So now the front tie downs are done. I can come to the back and do the back tie downs. These tie downs are a little bit different. You still put your finger on the nut and pull up on this wing. But as you can see, what's different is they don't fit in a rack, they just slide over. Give them a shake test. And actually, most of the time they'll just slide and click. There's only one spot in the floor for them, so you don't need to worry about positioning. Pull them out all the way, get them hooked up. And I think these need some oil because they're not working the best, but they're working. So these are still within tolerance. They're straight. They're twisted a little bit because of the way this chair is, but as long as they're not multiple twists like egg noodles, as long as it's half a twist or so, you're good. I gave these each a shake test. The front ones are already on, so now I can do my shake test back and forth. And I think these need a little oil because they're not self-tightening. You can also twist this if you need to tighten it. So now the chair is secured. We made sure the tie downs were in the floor. That's the first step. Second, we made sure the chair is secured. And now we're going to do the seat belts. However, we're ahead of the game because we already figured out this goes here, that goes there. So all we have to do is make sure that clicks in. Give it a tug, make sure it clicks in, you'll hear it. It does matter which way this goes on. This flat part goes flat against the tie down and then click in. If you do it this way, you may get it on, but I doubt if you're going to get it off. So keep the flat against the tie down. And we may need to give ourselves some slack. So a lot of people aren't real familiar with these belts. So you can't just pull on these and expect it to work very easy. To get these to loosen up, you turn this metal part perpendicular and then you can easily, adjust your belt. If you just try to tug on it, it's not going to adjust. So if you turn it, it does adjust. So this one, we're going to slide as close to the body as we can. Now this is actually our shoulder harness, and we're going to click it in up here. But I'm going to put that on after I get my seat belt on. So I'm going to get the other side of the seatbelt on. As you can see, this is really long, but make sure that clicks in. Make sure it goes as close to the body as you can get it. So I'm going to go ahead and buckle this and adjust my belts. So this belt with the red clicker, I'm going to figure out where I want my pin to go, and then I'm going to tighten this up. That should be pretty good. The other belt, you can step up forward here a little bit. And they've got this stretched out to the absolute max. So I gotta loosen it up a little bit. And you're going to want to make sure your seatbelt is not twisted when you put it on. So I want this as straight as I can get it. Then I'm going to hook that pin and make sure it clicks in. And then I'm going to have to snug this up. And usually these belts are a lot cleaner than this. Now you can see that we're running into a problem with this hitting your face. So you may need to have come a little bit closer to center. The other thing is, I think the chair itself is too far back because this is not doing its job. It's not against your shoulder. So we're going to have to do some adjustments. I'm going to loosen this up for now. So the problem is it's not the seatbelt system, it's where the chair is on the floor. So we need to move it forward. But to do that, you're going to have to release the back tie downs and take them off. The seatbelt should be loose enough. I'm going to give myself some slack though. So we got some slack to work with. And I'm simply going to roll the chair forward enough that this belt is doing its job better. So I think that should be pretty good. Put the brakes back on if they work. Don't trust the brakes, just use them. Okay, and we already got the front tie downs on. These are kind of old ratchets, so they're not tightening up on me the way they should. I'm going to put the rear tie downs back on. I'm going to check my seatbelt, make sure that's fairly snug, and then I'm going to tighten this up. So as you can see, that's closer to her body, and actually we could even go a little further forward to bring this closer to her shoulder, but our consumer is sliding down in the chair too. That's typically they'd be up a little higher and this would be closer to their shoulders. So one thing we didn't do was our shake test. We should have done that before the seat belts, and then we should have checked our seat belts and snug things up. If you forget like I did, you still do a shake test and snug things back up. So the tie down system is the same, that how it connects to the floor is a little different. You don't have to have the van running, but in the summer you can see I'm already sweating. You may want to have it running and have the AC on. There are vents to push cold air back here, so that would help. So everything's in the floor, everything's secure. We shut the van up, close the ramp, close the doors, and we take off, go to Dairy Queen, cool off, and then we're ready to head back. So when you stop at Dairy Queen, you're going to want to take the belt off, of course. And you can either undo this, which is what I would recommend, to just get it off to the side and out of the way so it doesn't hit the person in the head. You can slide this belt out. I would recommend before you put it away that you put a little slack in it so that when you come back it has some. You can just drop these belts in the middle of the floor while you're making a stop. You're going to want to give yourself some slack on this one so you can get it out. Excuse me. And you can see that you're going to be in close proximity to your consumer in here, probably even more so than in the high tops. So be careful, be aware of like for example, these things. Door keys on lanyards or necklaces or even face masks. This lanyard, if I get pulled, has a breakaway. It's not going to choke me. If it doesn't have a breakaway, it can choke you. So just be careful. And glasses are expensive, so be careful when you're working. This seat belt you can pull out, just drop it in the middle back here. You can unhook your rear tie downs. You still have your front ones on. Turn those toward the middle so they're out of the way. Now you can either go around on the side or you can do like I'm doing, come around. In the Caravan, I recommend taking this one off first. Now, I don't know what's wrong with these tie downs, but they should just wheel back in. These two tie downs in the floor are for the rear tie downs on somebody up here if you put a wheelchair up front, but you can just turn them out of the way. This tie down is going to be our last tie down. I can't take it off, but what I'm going to do is just make it easy. I'm just going to hook it on here for right now. It's still on there. It's not going to, the wheelchair is not going to roll out. But before I take it off, I have to be in the back. You have to be back here so that you can stop the wheelchair from rolling out in the street. But then you still got to take it off. You can just reach up, give yourself some slack, pop it off, and then you still got, you're behind it, you can slowly wheel the chair out. Okay, we made our stop. This is fine if you just have to make a stop, because you're going to be putting the person back in and you're doing all this over again anyways. When you're all done, you're going to want to take these belts off the tie downs. Fold them up best you can and put them away. And I usually take this off too, fold it up. Everything is in, all the belts should be in here, and they're there ready for the next person. All the tie downs are in the floor, so you're good to go. I'm going to grab one. And if you find other unsecured objects back here, please secure them. Like, for example, that ice brush. I just tucked that out of the way. I took this out of the way to demonstrate for the seats, but typically you can either store it right here in between these tie downs or either side of these seats too. So we're all done. We're all done for the day. So all we have to do is close up our van. And we're good. Make sure all your doors are closed up. If it's hot in the back of these vans, I would recommend having the AC running in the winter, or in the summer, not in the winter. You only make that mistake once. And please don't turn the heat on or leave the heat on for the next person when, you know, in the summer. Don't want the heat on when it's already hot back there. That's it for tie downs. If you have questions, please write them down when you come in for testing. You can ask me right off the bat. The testing is just to make sure, hands-on, that you know how to use the system that we have for these fans. The real test is real life. So I hope you enjoyed the class, and I hope you have safe travels.